and gentlemen, good evening. This is the Chorus Call conference operator. Welcome to the presentation of the results at the end of June of the Acea Group. As a reminder, all participants are in listen-only mode. After the presentation, there will be opportunity to ask questions. Should anyone need assistance during the conference call, they may signal an operator by pressing star and 0 on their telephone. At this point, I'll hand you over to Miss Ira Angrisani, Head of Investor Relations of Acea. You have the floor. Thank you, and welcome to the presentation of the Acea Group for the presentation of the results of the first half of 2022. The CEO, Mr. Gola, and the CFO, Mr. Paris, will illustrate the results. Thank you, Ira, and welcome to you all. We're going to present the results of the first half of 2022. The results are, in my opinion, quite good and are in line with my expectations. In the first half of the year, we had a number of positive results, or a number of positive events which gave us greater results. EBITDA at the end of the 6-month period, plus 10%, 682 million euros. EBIT growing by 12%, 348 million euros. And net profit, 183 million, up 10%. Despite the extraordinary contribution that we've had, this is a very good result. As to the net debt, it's in line with the guidance we gave, and capex 462 million euros, minus 3% versus the same period of last year. Net debt 4,212 million, plus 6%. Net debt EBITDA ratio 3.2 times. The EBITDA growth of 10% and the good results, considering the overall complex context, has allowed us to review the guidance upward. The previous guidance envisaged the EBITDA for the year growing by 4%, whereas now the new guidance envisages the EBITDA growing by the end of the year by 6%. Capex brought in line with 2021, and net debt between 4.2 and 4.3 billion euros. A very important piece of news. In the past few days, Acea has committed to the science-based target initiatives to set near-term company-wide emission reductions in line with the climate science of SBTi. Page 3 of the presentation, you see the main events of the first half of the year. Now, in March, we closed the sale to Equitix of the majority stake of the vehicle that owns photovoltaic assets. In March, again, 2022, Acea and Suez signed final agreements for the partnership for design and commercialization of digital water metering systems. April 22, we closed the acquisition in consortium with Ascopiave and Iren of certain gas distribution concessions from A to A. May 2022, the first green bond allocation and impact report published the years 2019 and 2020. Now, June 2022, Acea and Entity Data Italy presented a waste management system, a native cloud solution for protecting water resources. We inaugurated the largest 20 megawatt photovoltaic plant in Basilicata. Moreover, in a legal auction, we were given the Polo Cirsu business unit operating in Abruzzo in the waste treatment and storage. And then again in June, first climate disclosure report published in June. And then in July, a few days ago, we published the authorization received for a photovoltaic plant to be the largest in Sardinia and one of the biggest in Italy. Installed capacity 85 million euros. Ratings and certifications. In January 2022, we had the Gaia rating assigns Acea a score of 82 out of 100. and then top employers Italia certification in 2022, and then we were improved the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index with a score of 80.67. In July 2022, Standard Ethics confirmed the EE ratings, and Fitch Ratings then confirmed our rating of a BBB+ with a stable outlook. Page 4, we can see the main highlights. Now, revenues, 2,347.7 million euros, are growing almost 29%, thanks to the growth also of the price of energies. EBITDA, 682 million euros, growing by 10.3%. EBIT, 348 million, growing by 12.4%. Pre-tax profit, 323 million, growing by 20%. And group net profit after minorities, 183 million, growing by 10%. Well, here you have the negative effect of the extraordinary windfall tax, 29 million euros. Net debt, 4,212 million euros, growing by 5.6% versus December and 7.1% versus June. Now, as to the results, the effect of the windfall tax had an impact on all of the results. And then we had the 19 million euros of the sale of equities, of majority stake in Acea's photovoltaic assets. And then, as I said, windfall tax, as per Article 37 of Law Decree, 29 million euros. At this point, I'll hand you over to the CFO. Thank you, Giuseppe. Page 6 of the presentation, and we'll see the performance of the water business. And here you can see an increase of the EBITDA by 8.4%. And then you can see the EBITDA, 353.7 million euros for the first part of 2022. There are a number of elements which characterize the performance of the period. The payment and the price that we have received for technical quality, so technical quality bonus, 26.9 million euros, and then growth of Acea 802, operational efficiency technical quality bonus, 25.8 million euros, the growth of Acea 805, 2.6 million euros, with a contribution to the technical quality bonus of 700 million euros, which makes up for the Gori issue related to an increase in the sludge disposal costs and absence of a tariff increase. Now, let me point out, as we did already in the first quarter conference call, the closing of agreement between the consortium established by Ascopiave, Acea, and Iren, and the A2A group for the acquisition of certain gas distribution concessions. The concessions of interests to Acea, concessions in 5 items, including 2 in Abruzzo, 2 in Molise, and 1 in Campania. Acea and NTT Data Italia presented a Whaley management system. It's a native cloud solution that the group developed together with NTT Data for the protection of water resources. Let me now move on to page 7, where we can see the performance of energy infrastructure business. Here you can see a stable performance with a reduction of EBITDA by 0.3%. Let me remind you that the performance is characterized by the reduction of WACC of 70 basis points from 5.9% to 5.2%, equaling 13.3 million euros. However, this was offset by greater operational efficiency and an increase in investments and in RAB and investments in resilience. For this period, we would like to point out the installation of 2G electricity smart meters, approximately 507,000 meters installed as at the 30th of June 2022. Capex in the period are stable, slightly reducing, and they stand at 135.9 million euros. Now, the total of electricity distributed is increasing, 5,565 gigawatt hour distributed in the period. The number of pots is stable. Page 9 of the presentation. I do apologize. Let me move on to page 8, where we find the performance of the generation business. Now, here again, we see an increase of the EBITDA, a considerable increase, 52 million euros in the first half of 2022, which means up 46.9% versus the first half of 2021, when it was 35.4 million euros. The effect is basically related to the price effect of energy on the market, which partly makes up for the reduction of hydroelectric volumes recorded in the period, amounting to 70.7 gigawatt hour. And then let me give you an update of the development of photovoltaic plants business. Total pipeline 640 megawatts, 200 megawatts approved and authorized and partly under construction, and 200 megawatt include plants under construction and ready to build. 414 megawatts are waiting for approval. The deal with Equitix in March 2022, this is a piece of information which is well known. The perimeter of the deal related to 105 megawatt, including 46 megawatt eligible for feed-in tariffs. And then in the Basilicata region, we launched the largest photovoltaic plant, an operation which is in partnership with Equitix and which is already up and running. Moreover, Acea Solar has obtained the environmental impact assessment and the single consent from Sardinia Regional Authority for the construction of a photovoltaic plant in the municipality of Bolutara. This is going to be the largest plant in Sardinia and one of the biggest in Italy, and it will be up and running in the first half of 2024. Production is expected to be 170 gigawatt hour, equal to 70,000 tons of avoided CO2 emissions. Page 9, we can see the performance and the economic data of the commercial and trading area. Here you can see that EBITDA is going down by 5% and stands at 38.4 million euros versus 40.4 million euros in the first half of 2021. Total of energy sold in the first half of 2022 is slightly going down both on the free and on the protected market. We're speaking of 3,300 gigawatt hour in the first half of 2022. The number of customers is slightly growing, mainly driven by the growth of the free market, despite the slight reduction on the enhanced protected market. The total of gas sold first half of 2022, 131 millions of cubic meters. The number of gas customers, 228,000 customers. Now, the performance and the EBITDA is basically driven by the reduction of the unit margins on sales, 7.8 million euros. This is affected by the loss of 18,000 customers because of the outcome of auctions on the enhanced protected market. This was partly made up for by operational efficiency, 3.4 million euros, and also Acea Innovation and VAS, 2.2 million euros. That's the contribution in the first half of 2022. Page 10, we see the performance of the environment area or business, which records a considerable increase of EBITDA, 89.9%. This is driven mainly by the increase of WTE plant margins because of the greater price of energy, equaling 14.3 million euros. And then we have M&A deals, for instance, the acquisition of 65% of Deco, and the acquisition of 7% of Serplant and 60% of MEG, and then in overall these acquisitions contributed 7.6 million euros, and then CO2 allowances, the release from obligation for Terni plant to purchase CO2 allowances, 11.1 million euros. Waste treatment in the period, 1,093,000 tons, and the energy sold is basically stable. Page 11 of the presentation, all of the items are growing. EBIT up 12.4%, 348 million. Pre-tax profit is growing by 20.2%, going up to 323.7 million euros. Here, remember that we have the gain on sale of photovoltaic assets, 19 million euros, the deal with the Equitix that we mentioned already. The net profit of the period growing by 10.4%, going up to 183 million euros, which includes the windfall tax on profits, 29 million euros. The tax rate of the period affected by this 29 million is 29.8%. Would be 30%. Without the tax fall, is stable at 29.8%. Depreciations are slightly growing, 9.8%, which is in line, so to speak, with the change in the scope of consolidation and versus the previous period. Impairments, as you can see, are slightly decreasing, and this is due to the loss rate and the cash-in performance recorded by the group, which continue to be positive on all of our business lines. And then you see provisions which are growing, and this is due to a positive component recorded last year by 1.8 million euros. Page 12 of the presentation, you see here the capex, 462 million euros, water contribution 251 million euros, and here we have to record the growth in this period of investments, 12 million, and then energy infrastructure 136, 20 million generation, commercial and trading 21 million euros. Here we have costs for customer acquisition and projects which were launched in 2021. Environment 18 million euros, going up by 4 million versus the previous year, and other business lines 16 million euros of overall investments. If we now go to page 13 of the presentation, you see the cash flow. Total cash flow in the period absorbs 224 million euros. Change in working capital 183 million euros. Capex 462 million euros. Finance costs, dividends 181 million euros. M&A operations positive data 8 million euros due to the sale of the photovoltaic plant with Equitix, and as you can see, the positive contribution of 150 million. Page 14, you see the financial position, 4 billion 212 million euros, growing by 223.7 million euros versus December. The leverage of the group is constant, 3.2 times net debt over EBITDA. The structure of the debt, 84% fixed rate, 1.4% the cost, 4.8 is the average duration. The ratings of Fitch triple B plus stable outlook, and Moody's Baa2 stable outlook, and then CDP A minus leadership confirmed. Standard Outlook improved its rating, double E, outlook raised to positive. Bloomberg improved to 80.67, and the Gaia rating improved its rating as well to 82 out of 100. So this is the end of the presentation. Thank you very much, Fabio. We can now start the Q&A session. This is the conference call operator. We can now start the Q&A session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on their touch-tone telephone. To remove yourself from the question queue, please press star and two. We kindly ask you to use the handset when asking questions. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on their touch-tone telephone. The first question from the Italian conference, Enrico Bartoli with Mediobanca. Good evening. I have a few questions to ask the water business, first of all. Now, the drought that we are seeing in Italy further confirmed the need of investments within the water pipeline network. Could you give us some information about the discussion that you probably have with the government? I know that we have a government crisis in this moment, but do you believe that the regulator intends to further accelerate investments within a water network? A second question about the authorization of the plant in Sardinia. Does this plant also is part of the partnership with Equitix? Then are you seeing a simplification of the authorization processes, and can we expect also an acceleration of the authorization for your assets going forward? And then another question about your guidance. Can you give us some information about the drivers behind the guidance increase? You mentioned the one-off factors that led you to increase your guidance. Are there any other factors, positive factors, that led to your reviewing of the guidance upward? Now, thank you. As to the question about the water business and the related investments, well, it's clear that Acea is the demonstration, and especially Acea Ato 2 in Rome, shows that there is a need to make investments. Following the experience in 2017, when we risked, going to a rationing policy of water in Rome, we doubled almost investments in Rome, and for Ato 2 we are at around 100 euros per citizen in Rome of investments. This allows us to improve the resilience of the network, and this year, despite the severe drought, we do not see a danger of rationing water in Rome. We put in place some good work to reduce the water leaks, to further digitalize the network, which allows us to manage the water network by also managing the pressures in the appropriate manner, reducing the water leaks and the water needs. Now, in Rome, we have an average need of 14.5 cubic meters of water, thanks to the investments and the work that we have done within our network. Of course, investments are necessary. In a city like Rome, where the structure of Acea and the financial soundness of Acea allows the company to make investments, but in other parts of Italy, this is not possible because there are no big companies, or there are no financial partners. This is an issue that we pointed out several times to the regulator. There will probably be the need to have a national approach so as to make sure that investments can be made, without constantly leveraging on the local tariffs. So we believe that the water network may go towards an approach similar to the one used for the distribution of electricity in the country. And then, of course, the PNRR plan may contribute to the improvement of the network. The plan in 4 years is worth 10 euros of investments per inhabitants of the country. So it's a strong contribution to the sector, but it does not allow us to, bring the average of the sector from 50 euros to 100 euros per inhabitant of all the country. As far as the question about the authorization of the plant in Sardinia, the plant is owned by Acea, I'm sorry. We will build the plant, and when the plant is ready to operate, it will be moved on to the vehicle that will be managed managed by Equitix 6%, 40% Acea. But at the moment, everything is in the hands of Acea. As to your question about the guidance, well, I have to say that we recorded a very good EBITDA performance in the first part of the year, and this is also due to a number of one-offs, like the technical quality bonus for the water business, or the one-off we had in the environment business, the exoneration of, the need to buy CO2 certificates for the Terni plant. This contributed to the overall performance. We do not see or we do not expect negative events in the second part of the year, despite the complexity of the situation. Well, as far as energy in 2022, we are fully covered, and so we, because of the lack of other one-offs, the guidance that we are giving is a good, stable performance of the year, plus the one-off or the one-offs that we record in the first part of the year. Second question by Stefano Gamberini with Equitas. Now, good evening, and congratulations for the results of the first half of the year. Now, I have a question about the prices of power generation. Now, the cap of the government stand at 68, 66, 68 euros. Does that have an impact on your results? And I'd like to know something about it. And then what can we expect for, the whole year for this division, which has performed so far very well? Second question, the 11 million euros for the San Vittore plant is a one-off. I will not have this contribution in the second part of the year. And then the first trend of, Q3, can we expect it to go forward for the whole year? The working capital change, 180 million euros difference in the first 6 months. Is this related to receivables? If I remember well, we had regulations-related issues in the past. Now, at the moment, considering the prices of energy and the lack of recognition of the charges or costs of the system had an impact on the working capital. Is that what has happened? And then what can we expect from here to the end of the year? Costs of energy. For the year, you say you're covered. Now, I remember that you said that the regulator has recognized a cost of energy for the execution, which is very low, but you're covered for 2022. But going forward, considering the current prices of energy, what's going to happen going forward, and what kind of discussions are you going to have with the local authorities that have to approve the tariff increase to make up for these higher costs? Now, as to generation, the law decree has an impact only on one of the 4 hydroelectric power plants, specifically the Sant'Angelo plant, a negative impact of 8 million euros. This is not a negative one-off. This is an event which reduces the price of energy versus the previous year. We expect this to be constant also for the second part of the year. Perhaps a little less because we have the summer in between, when hydroelectric power production is limited. Now, the CO2 contribution is not a one-off, but since it starts being calculated in 2021, so this year we have a positive contribution because we resold onto the market the certificates of CO2 that we bought in 2021, and we are exempted in 2022. So this improves our result. This is a long-term exemption. This relates to the WTE of Terni because the WTE of San Vittore was already exempted. Now, your question about the working capital. Let me remind you that the other hydroelectric power plants are excluded, are exempted, because they include or they benefit from incentives. As far as the working capital is concerned, 180 million euros of absorption, 50 million euros are due to charges of the system, which had an impact in the end of the 6 months. Then 60 million euros related to an increase of prices of energy that increased the revenues of sales that went up in the period by 350 million euros, and this has generated an increase of the working capital, which is around, as I said, 60 million euros. And then we had some other effects that relate to the absorption of the working capital and which have to do with activities that are being developed, especially Acea Innovation, 11 million. Now, the effect of the price of energy for the next year. Now, the group has not had and is not having any impact from this. Well, this is due to the price management policy that we had adopted before, and we had been able to remain below the caps that were introduced afterwards. Now, we understand that this is a temporary measure introduced on the part of the authority, which has not had an impact on our group. We are not going to have any effect, nor did we have any effect that we have to, in some way, to recover. Well, perhaps if I can follow up here. What is the tariff increase in the waste business that you expect in 2023, and what are the operating costs that we can expect in 2023, considering the current energy scenario and the current price increase? Did you say waste? Sorry, I meant the water distribution. Well, what I'm trying to understand, this year things went well. What's going to happen in 2023? And because I see, tariff increase, but also OPEX, the price of energy can be a problem. How are you going to manage it? We do not have a clear final visibility going forward because these elements, these aspects are still under discussion. The tariff increases that relate Acea, which is the main company of the group. To give you an idea, tariff increases have already been set. Just a second, I am looking for the piece of information so as to be precise. 5.7%. This is the growth which is assumed. The tariff setting process is still being discussed. We'll have the final figure when we have the conference of the mayors. It should be closed by autumn. As to the prices of energy, as of today, we have not had any impact. As to 2023, we are not in a position at the moment to give you, ideas about measures which are going to be taken. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. The next question by Emanuela Oggioni, Chevreau. Good evening. Thank you very much for your presentation and congratulations for the results on my part as well. Now, I'd like to understand what kind of visibility do you have for your retail business division. Now, you said that it's too soon to speak about 2023. There's no visibility. But as to 2022, Q1 strongly decreasing, Q2 strongly going up, as you anticipated in the previous conference call. Now, in 2022, can we expect a year-on-year stability of the overall EBITDA? Now, a second question is a follow-up question, really, to better understand the waste business. Now, you do not consider this 11 million euros for CO2. You do not consider that a recurrent effect. But then, what is the impact that we can expect in 2023? Are we going to have, 11 million euros every year? And then I have a third question about when are you going to present the new business plan? You said you were going to, make it after the summer because of the auction of the waste-to-energy plan, which is still to be awarded. And so I wanted to have an idea about when you are going to present the new business plan and also have an update on the award, of the WTE plant in Rome. Now, let me clarify that before we were not speaking about the retail business, but we were going to speak about, we were mentioning the effect of the energy price increase on the water business. As to the waste business, let me try to try to explain the effect. Now, there was a discussion about the application of the obligation of purchase of CO2 rights for the Terni plant. This discussion went on in the first part of the year, and in the same period we obtained the exemption of the obligation to acquire CO2 rights to make up for the CO2 emissions of the plant. This effect is retroactive for 2021. In the first part of the year, 2022, we recorded the sale of rights, CO2 rights, that we purchased in 2021 and which were in excess. So we had a financial positive effect due to the sales onto the market of these CO2 rights. The exemption is going to be lasting, and the plant will continue to operate until things change. For the time being, we consider this exemption as a lasting effect. As to the retail business, as we said before, in the second quarter we had a recovery of results versus Q1 because we had greater visibility of the trend of the energy management. And for the rest of the year we expect a further recovery. And so conservatively we can say that the result is going to be in line with that of the previous year, perhaps slightly growing, and I'm referring to the EBITDA of the commercial area. As to 2023, it's a bit more difficult to make a forecast at the moment. Certainly, we are ready to manage the effect of the price increase of energy, and for this reason we changed our commercial policy. The customers that are on the free market and which have a fixed tariff have received a communication of tariff increases, and for this reason we hedged the energy increase. The other customers all have variable energy. The new customers on the free market have a price which is going to be a proxy of the pool. Well, clearly we have to reason on margins. Now, however, it's a bit too early to make forecasts on margins for 2023. As to the retail market for 2023, starting in September, there will be an auction for the end of the enhanced protected market for the B2B market, the small and medium-sized companies, and the result of that auction can have a meaningful impact on the result. In the case of Acea, that business segment includes 87,000 companies. If Acea is awarded the lot of the city of Rome, will see an increase in the number of customers. So that is going to be a driver that is going to have an impact on the commercial and trading business results. As to the business plan, we've been working on this for some time now. Now, this year has probably been the year of the perfect storm, for a business plan preparation. The price energy scenario is already complex. And so, and then over and above this, the project of the WTE in Rome, where of course we want to play a major active role. This is a project that may have a considerable impact, both in terms of investments and margins on our plan. And before, disclosing the business plan, we would like to have a more detailed view on this plan. We're working to present the business plan in the second part of the year, but I couldn't tell you when, however, in this moment. Thank you. Now, the next question from Davide Candela, Intesa San Paolo. Good evening, and thank you very much for the presentation. All of the questions I had have been answered. I only have a curiosity. The windfall tax on extra profits. The 8 million you mentioned for the water business, are they included in that tax? And the remaining part, 20 million, what is the nature of the extra profit? Where do they come from, considering your profile of regulated assets between water and distribution businesses? Now, the 8 million we mentioned before for the Sant'Angelo plant are not included in the 29 million of the windfall tax on extra profit, or as it is called, the solidarity contribution. So you need to add this. When it comes to the 29 million of the solidarity contribution, is related to Acea Energia, so the commercial business, generation, Acea Produzione, and Acea Farm. These are the companies which produce and generate energy, and then as to the environment, also for the production of energy. Basically, we have two macro effects. One is a mere increase of volumes and prices applied to the world of energy. The other is related to an increase of the taxable base because of M&A's deals in the period. The solidarity contribution is applied on the VAT taxable amount. Here you also have to include M&As or extraordinary operations. Now, for instance, the sale of the stake to Equitix is included within the volume that then leads to an increase of the taxable base, and therefore is calculated for that solidarity contribution. So two effects, an increase in volumes and price, especially recorded in the period, and then the amounts received for the M&As, basically the sales of stake that we made in the first part of the year. I don't know whether I was clear. As a reminder, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on their touchtone telephone. The next question, a follow-up question by Oggioni. Mr. Oggioni. Thank you, and I do apologize. Perhaps you talked about this and I didn't hear it. As to the worsening of the quality of credit and possible impairments we haven't yet seen what is going to happen in the future negatively, I guess. So can you tell me something about this, if Acea has and runs this risk? Well, this is something we devote our attention to. I'm referring to the performance of the first part of the year. Now, the performance of H1 are all positive for all businesses of Acea. and they're positive both in terms of our expectation and when compared to the same results of the previous year. Because of what may happen, we introduced a mechanism of impairments to take into account something that may happen and which hasn't yet been or is not clear, looking only at what we cash in. There may be a worsening in the commercial world. We believe that, companies may be exposed to the risks that you were mentioning. Thank you. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on your touchtone telephone. Ladies and gentlemen, there are no other questions from the conference call. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for listening to our conference call, and have a nice summer holiday. And we'll hear from you next time. This is the conference call, Chorus Call conference operator. The conference is now over. You may disconnect your telephones. Thank you.